Hey again, everyone. Welcome back. So in the previous video, we were working inside of our template pickup. So we've got most of the functionality for that set up. We also set up the text display above our pickups inside of the game and how that gets displayed. In this video, we need to set up providing a way for the player character to, or for the player, I should say, to press a button and bring up our inventory, as well as add items to our inventory and drop items from our inventory. So we're going to do all of that and then finish up our pickup, template pickup as well, so that the item gets added to the inventory. And with those done, we should be able to finally test all of our hard work and everything should come together. So let's go ahead and continue. And we are going to start inside of the content browser under the blueprints folder, the first person BP folder. Let's go ahead and open up our first person character blueprint. So go ahead and double click, open that up. And inside here, we're going to need to provide some script for the player to bring up the inventory menu. Now for our purposes, we are going to be just using PC controls. So we're going to use the I key to bring up the inventory and the E key to bring up our, or to pick up items. You would probably want to go into your project settings. If you go to project settings under edit here, under engine and input, you'd probably want to add some action mappings for these functions. So an inventory menu or a use menu or a use button, excuse me. That way you could bind gamepad controls or touch controls if you're doing this for other than PC input. So for now, let's just go ahead and continue with PC input for our example here. So back in our first person character blueprint, just going to find a spot inside of our graph here. Just right click. I'm going to search for I. And let's use the I key event. So whenever I is pressed. And first thing we're going to do, we're going to hold B and left click to create a branch. And we're going to connect our pressed to our branch because we want to run a conditional check. And the check that we want to run is, can we activate our inventory? So let's go to our game HUD reference in the My Blueprint panel. Let's hold Control and drag that into the graph. And we created a Boolean variable in here that enables our inventory called Activate Inventory. If you need to see it again really quickly, Game HUD and our inventory menu. We are setting whether or not this can be enabled through this property here, this Activate Inventory. So we need to check if we can activate our inventory. So let's go back to our first person character and let's get that variable. So we're going to say get activate inventory so you can read the value of it. And if that is true, let's go ahead and plug this in. If that is true, then we can display our inventory. If it is not, then we're not going to do anything. So we're not going to worry about the false. So for the true, what we're going to do is use a flip-flop node. So let's right click and search for flip-flop. And this is basically a toggle essentially. So the first time I come in, it will do A. When I come into this node again, it will do B. So this is perfect for turning on and off our inventory. So let's connect the true to our flip-flop node. Now, off the A, we are going to be turning it on. So what we're going to need to do is, let's grab our game HUD reference here, drag off of it, and say set inventory visible, because we need to make it visible. So go ahead and select set inventory visible. And let's connect our A to the set. So we're setting it to true. And then for the false, or not the false, excuse me, the B, what we're going to do is the same thing essentially. So let's hit Control C and Control V, but we're going to set this to hidden now. So go ahead and hide it at that point. And let's connect our B like so. And we also need to connect our game HUD reference to the target here as well before we forget, something like that. So that should set our inventory to visible and hidden each time we press the I key. There's one more thing that we need to do. We need to display our mouse cursor. So whenever we bring up our inventory to display our mouse cursor, we're actually going to create a function to handle this for us. So let's create a couple functions over in the My Blueprint panel over here. So let's go up to the functions and add a function. And this function is going to be called enable mouse cursor. I'm going to create one more function, and this one's going to be called disable mouse cursor. because we're going to add some script in here that we can use to turn on and off not only our cursor, but our crosshairs as well. So way back in video 2, we set up the ability to turn on and off our crosshairs. We're now going to use that here. So let's start out with the enable mouse cursor here. So I'm just going to double click on that. So inside this graph, the first thing that we're going to do is grab our game HUD reference. Let's hold Control and drag that into the graph. And then we're going to right click in the graph and search for a node called set input mode game. Yeah, set input mode game, and UI is the one that we want. So there's two options here when we search for set input mode game. The first, we're going to use this one here, set input mode game and UI. It basically is a way to allow the player to control both game and UI elements. So it'll allow us to present our crosshair, or excuse me, our cursor, and respond to input from the UI. The game-only one will ignore UI elements, and we'll do that when we disable our mouse cursor. So to start, let's select the set input mode game and UI here, and let's connect our executables like so. And the widget to focus is our game HUD reference, because we want to focus on that particular widget. The target is asking for a player controller reference. So we're going to right click and say get player controller. So get player controller. And you can see there's other options. You can lock the mouse to the viewport. You can hide the cursor during capture, etc. But we're not going to worry about changing those. I think we can leave those as default. Let's take our return value from our get player controller, plug that into the target. And then the next thing that we need to do is access the first person HUD, which controls the crosshairs. To get that, we're going to need to drag off the get player controller here and search for get HUD. So we're going to get the HUD associated with that player controller. But not just any HUD, we need the first person HUD. So we're going to drag off the return value here and use a cast node to access the first person HUD. So cast to first person HUD. So there's our first person HUD. Let's go ahead and select that. Let's move this up and connect that to that. And from the first person HUD, we have that Boolean variable that we created a while ago called show crosshairs. So we're going to set that just by dragging off this pin here, searching for show crosshairs, choose the set show crosshairs, and we're going to leave this unchecked because we do not want to see our crosshairs. So let's go ahead and connect this up. And then the last thing that we need to do, let's drag off our get player controller here again. And from it, we can say set show mouse cursor. So set show mouse cursor, so we can enable or disable the display of the mouse cursor. Let's go ahead and select that. And let's drag that up here and connect this. And we're going to set this to true so that we see our mouse cursor. Now with all of this, our functionality for the disable mouse cursor is going to be very similar. So I'm going to drag a selection box around all of this here, excluding this node, the entry node. Can hit Control C, hop over to our disable mouse cursor, or you can do it from over here, and hit Control V to paste our script. And for the disable mouse cursor, what we're going to do is delete this set input game mode and UI. We can delete that. We actually don't need a widget to focus for this, so we can delete this as well. But we do need, if we drag off the get player controller, we need to set input mode game only. So set input mode to the game only, like so. Let's connect our entry point, and let's connect our cast to the first person HUD. And we do need to flip-flop our, I shouldn't say flip-flop, we do need to change around our variables here. So when we are returning to gameplay, we want to show our crosshairs again, so go ahead and check that. And we want to turn off our mouse cursor, so we're going to uncheck that. So with that, let's compile and save. And then let's hop back to the event graph. So you can double click it from over here as well. And on the event graph, we need to implement those two functions now. So what we're going to do is take our enable mouse cursor, just left click and drag and drop that in to the grid here. or the graph here. And let's take the disable mouse cursor and drag and drop that into the graph here. So now with both of these set, let's connect the inventory visible to our enable mouse cursor. Let's connect the inventory visible hidden to our disable mouse cursor. Get over here. Like so. And we should be done with setting up our inventory. So we can toggle on and off the display of our inventory menu now. So let's add a comment around this. Hit C. And we're going to say toggle inventory menu. The last two things that we need to do inside of the player character blueprint here is to provide a way for the player to pick up items and drop them. Picking up items is going to be pretty short, actually. So let's go ahead and do that one first. I'm going to right click and hit E on my keyboard and search for an E key event. So we're going to use the E key to pick up items. So we're going to hit E. And for this one, before we add an item to our inventory, we need to first determine if our inventory is full or not. So to do that, let's go to our Game HUD reference over here in the My Blueprint panel, hold Control and drag that into the graph. And from this, we can get our inventory. So let's drag off of the Game HUD reference here and say get inventory. So we're getting our inventory. And once we have our inventory, we can check the length of it or the number of items inside of it. So let's drag off the inventory here and say length, search for length to give us the amount of items inside. And for our system, we set it up so that we can only have 5 items in our inventory since we created 5 slots. So we're just going to run a check. Is this value less than 5? So let's drag off of this, hit a less than sign. So integer less than integer. Go and select that. And the value we're checking against is 5. So let's enter a 5 here. Now that we have our condition, we need to add a branch now. So let's hold B and left click. It's going to create a branch. Let's connect our pressed to the branch and connect our condition to the condition. I'm going to move this over just a little bit so it's a little bit tinier, something like that. So if our inventory is full, we're not going to do anything. But if our inventory is not full, we can add items. We're going to add something to the true here to allow us to pick it up. Now we need to notify the pickups in our level that they need to be picked up. So what we're going to do is use an event dispatcher. So in this blueprint, we'll hit E. If we have enough space, we'll call the event dispatcher telling our pickup that it needs to be picked up. So let's add an event dispatcher down in the My Blueprint panel. So go ahead and click the event dispatcher button here. And it created 2 because I double clicked it. We only need 1. I'm going to hit F2 and rename this to pickup item. So with that, let's left click and drag that in to the graph and choose call from the context menu. And then let's connect this to the true. And that's all we're going to do for the picking up of items. So let's select all of this and hit C and say pick up items. The actual checking if we are in range to actually pick up an item is handled on the pickup themselves. All we need to be able to determine is if we have enough room in our inventory, and if we can, then we can call this pickup items. The actual pickup item itself of picking it up, the act of picking it up, will not occur unless we are in range of a pickup. So that checking is handled on the pickup itself, in case you were wondering. So the last thing that we need to do for our player character blueprint here is to go to allow the player to drop items from the inventory. So to do that, we created our blueprint interface, which handles using and dropping items. So we're going to need to implement that interface here. So let's go up to the class settings at the very top. Click the class settings button. Over on the far right, we have the interfaces. So let's go ahead and add an interface. Now, I've already added an interface to this. I think I did this in between videos, but yours may say none. All you have to do is click the add button and then choose action interface from the top so that it is added to the implemented interfaces. Once you've done so, go ahead and hit compile and save just for the sake of it. And then let's implement that interface now. So we're going to right click in the graph and we're going to search for event drop action. So there's our drop action. Go ahead and select that. And now we have our event from our interface here. And for this, what we're going to do, when we are dropping items or picking up items, we are not necessarily destroying those items because we still want reference to them. We are actually going to hide them and turn off their collision. We're only going to destroy the item when we have used the item. So what we're going to do here when we drop an item is unhide it and re-enable its collision, and then move the location of that pickup to a location near our player character. And to get that location near our player character, there's a bunch of different ways you could do it. We're going to cheat and do it a simpler way. Let's go up to the viewport up here so that we are looking at all of our components on our character. Notice there's an arrow here that kind of indicates the direction that the player is facing. This type of component, we're going to use that as well. So we're going to create another component. So let's go to the Add Components button up here. Let's go ahead and click Add Component, search for arrow. Let's go ahead and choose the arrow. It's a utility component. Let's go ahead and select it. And what we're going to call this arrow is the drop location. So we're going to use this arrow to determine where items should be dropped. So in the viewport here, with it selected, I'm just going to grab the blue arrow and the blue arrow of the move widget, that is, and just drag this down to say -100, something like that. And then move it out a little bit. So something like this, 60, I think is good. So that items will spawn at this location when we choose to drop them. So let's hop back to the event graph now. And if we go to my blueprint panel, under components, there is our drop location now. Let's hold Control and drag that into the graph. And what we need to do now is drag off of our item to drop here. And we're going to set actor hidden in game. That's the node that we want. So set actor hidden in game. We actually do not want to hide it. So we're going to leave this unchecked so that it becomes visible. And then we're going to drag off the item to drop again and say set actor enable collision. So set actor enable collision. Go ahead and select that. And we want to re-enable our collision. So we're going to hook this up like so and click this checkbox to re-enable our collision. And then finally, we need to set the transform of this item that we are dropping. Where are we placing it in the world? So to get that, let's drag off the item to drop. Set actor transform. All the way down at the bottom here, set actor transform. Select that. Let's move this over and connect that to that. You can see it's asking for the new transform of where we want to set this. That's where we're going to use our drop location. So let's drag off of drop location and say get world transform. Down there at the bottom, go ahead and select that. And let's plug in our return value to our new transform. So we are done with our drop action. Let's go ahead and select all of this and hit C and say drop items, like so. So we've done a lot there. We have the ability to display our inventory menu. We can pick up items. We can drop items. We still need to add the functionality of adding items to our inventory, which is going to be handled inside of our pickup. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we should be able to test all of our systems. Everything should be working together now. So let's compile and save, and then let's close this blueprint. I'm actually going to close these other tabs too because I don't need those. So let's finish up by going to the first person BP and the blueprints folder. Let's open up our template pickup. Let's go ahead and double click, open it up. And here's all of our script that we created for our pickup so far. During the event begin play, at the end of that, we created the reference to our first person character so that we can get a reference to it. And now what we can do is drag off of our character reference here. And because we created that event dispatcher, we can say assign pickup item. So assign pickup item is the function that we want here. And now we are binding this pickup to that event dispatcher. So whenever we pick up an item, whatever is connected to this will now get executed as well. So let's make sure that we connect our set like so. And to handle actually picking up our item, what we're going to do is first determine is the player in range? Is the player in range of picking up the item? So let's hold Control and drag that into the graph. We're going to do one more check to make sure that the item has collision enabled on it, to make sure that the item isn't hidden and we're next to it and can pick up a hidden item. So we're going to make sure that collision is enabled, which means that the item is ready to be picked up. So to do that, we're going to right-click on the graph and search for get actor enable collision is the function that we want. So get actor enable collision. So select that. So it gives us two Booleans. We're going to join these two together with an AND statement. So I'm going to drag off this one here. Search for an AND. So an AND Boolean. So this one here. We're going to connect our is in range to the AND, the other half of the AND here. Then I'm going to hold B and left click to create a branch. And that's going to be our condition to check. So let's connect our pickup item event to the branch, like so. And if either of these are false, we are not going to pick up the item. We are not going to do anything. However, if both of these are true, then we can execute our true and add the item to our inventory. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we're going to test our system out here. So let's grab our item info, because that's the information that we want to add to our inventory, the item itself, the thumbnails, the text. We want to add this to our inventory. So let's go ahead and hold Control and drag this into the graph. We also need to hold Control and bring in our character reference here. So let's hold Control and bring that in. And from our character reference, inside of our character reference, our first-person character blueprint, we have reference to our game HUD. So let's drag off of character reference and say get game HUD reference. So there's our game HUD reference. Let's go ahead and get that. And inside of that is our inventory. So we can drag off of the game HUD reference and say get inventory, not our menu. We just want to get the actual inventory array. So go ahead and select get inventory. And finally, with our inventory, we can say add to it. So add. So we're going to add to the array. And the item that we are going to add is our item info. So let's connect our item info like so. And let's connect the true like so as well. And once we have added the item to our inventory, we can then take our pickup text, the text that is displayed above this pickup, and remove it because the item has been picked up. So we're going to hold Control and drag this into the graph. I'm going to drag off of this now and say remove from parent. So we are removing the display of the text that appears above this pickup. So let's connect that to that, like so. The last bit of business that we need to do, once we've picked the item up, we need to set the item to hidden in game. We also need to disable the collision on it. And then there's one last thing that we will do. So let's go ahead and right-click in the graph and search for set actor hidden in game, like so. And let's connect remove from parent to set actor hidden in game. We do want to hide it, so go ahead and check the new hidden. And then we're going to drag off of this here, and we're going to search for set actor enable collision. So set actor enable collision. Go ahead and select this. And we do not want to enable collision, so we're going to leave this unchecked. And the last thing that we need to do before we're ready to test is let's drag off of our game HUD reference here. So make sure you're on the game HUD reference, drag off the output. Once we've added an item to our inventory, we need to refresh our inventory. So refresh inventory. This will update all of our buttons and make sure that they have the right thumbnails and the right items are associated with it. So refresh our inventory. So let's connect that to that like so. And that's it. We are done. Let's add a comment around this and hit C and say pick up and add items to the inventory, then refresh it. And let's compile and save. And I'm going to go to the item info here, and in the default value, just expand this really quickly. We are ready to test. So when we get in game, once we drag this template pickup into our level, when we approach it, we should see our pickup text displayed above it. When we pick the item up, we should see this thumbnail appear inside of our inventory. When we click on the item in our inventory, we should see our action text that we've entered here. The item itself has been specified right here in our event begin play. We are getting a reference to ourself and setting that as the particular item we are referring to. So everything should be functioning. Let's go ahead and test this. Let's save and close. Let's grab our template pickup here. Just left click and drag that into our level so that it's in there. And let me turn my sound down, make sure. So let's play and test. So there's our pickup. I'm pressing E, nothing happens. Pressing I, bring up my inventory. There's my inventory. Press I again, and it goes away. Our cursor pops up, so we have control. So we can highlight things. I can still shoot, but we'll fix that in the next video. So we can do that, and we can press I again. And let's see, let's go over to our pickup. There is our pickup text that appears above our item. Press E to pick it up because we are in range. I can hit I. It's been added to our inventory. I can mouse over it now. You can see it's highlighting as we expected. There's our thumbnail. I can click on it. Our inventory menu becomes disabled in the background. Our action menu is now active, and we are using our same colors as before. We can cancel and return back to our inventory menu. It becomes active. We can click on it again. Can drop the item. It's been removed from our inventory. Can hit I to remove our inventory. There's our item right in front of us at the drop location. Can pick it back up. Hit I. And I keep shooting. We got to fix that in the next video. But I can click the item. Watch our health, energy, and mood when I decide to use or eat beans as we specified. And it gave me health, energy, and mood, and removed the item from our inventory. So our inventory system is functioning. Everything is coming along nicely, actually. So there's still a little bit more to do. In the next video, we'll do a little bit of polish, a little bit of cleanup. We'll also set it up so that our inventory menu slides in and out from the right side of the screen. So we'll do a little bit of UI animating inside UMG. And then some fixes, as I mentioned. I can still fire, I can still jump and move around while our inventory is up. Probably want to fix that, so we'll do that in the next video as well. And then we'll also show you how you can take this template project or template pickup and modify it inside the details panel so that you can have multiple instances of pickups in your level and then just decide what each pickup should be right here inside the details panel. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you in the final video in this series. We'll see you then.